Steel Taipan is a MACK Rides multi-launch coaster located on the Gold Coast of Australia at Dreamworld. Opened up in 2021, and if you've visited Europa Park in Germany, you're probably familiar with this ride. Ever heard of Blue Fire? It opened at Europa Park in 2009. It was like the first big thrill ride that MACK debuted, and it's since been cloned around the world. There's 10 versions of this ride, and this is the only one that has a slight difference to it. While the standard layouts just feature the single launch into an overbank, this one has a swing launch with the addition of a spike. So you go forwards, backwards up the spike, and then you hit your max speed to go through the rest of the layout. So in this review, I'm going to talk about what that sensation is like, give some thoughts on the rest of the layout as well, although you can already go check out a review of Blue Fire Mega Coaster at Europa Park that I did several years ago. That video is absolutely applicable here, but I'll still discuss my favorite parts and recommendations of whether you should ride in the front or the back. But let's first start with your entry experience. Right after you enter Dreamworld, you're immediately going to go to the left, and you're already at the entrance to this ride. You can't miss it. It's the park's biggest roller coaster here ever since they got rid of Tower Terror 2. It's got a very cool entrance sign, awesome photo op with the rest of the layout, and the queue is really neat too. It's basically a big giant skeleton of a snake. You walk directly under and it's really cool. Great stylization. I wouldn't say the roller coaster is themed, but they did give it some nice paint, cool decor. I even like how the ground looks on the plaza. It's photogenic. As you're walking up though, you can choose between waiting on the front row, any of the middle rows, or the unique spinning seat. By now, you're probably aware that the Gold Coast of Australia loves their upcharged last row experiences. You can do Leviathan at SeaWorld backwards, you can do DC Rivals backwards, or you can ride Steel Taipan spinning. Unfortunately for us, they were only operating Steel Taipan with one train, and it was the train that does not have the spinning seat. And from what I've heard, we are not the only people that have encountered that issue. Apparently, the park only likes to run the spinning seat on the weekends or on particularly busy days. They actually had that train down for maintenance when we were there, so it was literally in pieces. It just sucked because that wasn't announced at all when we planned this trip, and it wasn't available anywhere on their website to see. You can actually book your tickets for the spinning seat in advance. Even though the car wasn't going to be available, we could still do that online, which is really weird. I was definitely bummed to miss it. I heard some early reviews that the ride experience is kind of like Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland, which I think is one of the best roller coasters on the planet, maybe the best. And the spinning seat is just supposed to be absolutely insane. So I was really sad that I didn't get to do it. Just be aware of that if you come to Dreamworld. If the spinning car is on the track, do it. I got to do the spinning seat on Icon at Blackpool Pleasure Beach recently, and that was a lot of fun. I was really glad to experience that. If it's anything like Steel Taipan though, I'd recommend doing that spinning seat by yourself. Don't sit with anyone next to you, because then you won't spin anywhere near as much. You want to keep that car off balance. But enough about that. You board your train, you take your seats. The restraints are set up the exact same as DC Rivals. It's an over-the-shoulder lap bar and then a seat belt that the ride-offs will come and insert for you. When you dispatch out of the station, you take a left-hand 180-degree turn, and you park at the base of your launch track. There's a switch track behind you that's so that you'll be able to go safely up the backward spike. You launch forward, there's a little bit of boost at the start, and then you just coast. And unfortunately, this is my biggest problem with this modified layout. There's a lot of dead space on this ride. Because here's what happened. On the original Blue Fire, you needed to reach your max speed with this section of track right here. So when you turn it into a swing launch, you don't hit that max speed until the very end. So the launch lets up and then you're just gliding on straight track. It's like weird and kind of like awkward. It's like, okay, something's gonna come. Here it is. Yay. And then you go back downwards. And then it's like, oh, great. More straight track. All right. And we're coasting. And we're coasting. Oh, there's the launch. In a perfect scenario where this was like designed from scratch and not like a modified version of a pre-existing layout, that section where the launch would be a lot tighter. So then it removes all that empty space. But it's clear that Dreamworld said, hey, give us that standard layout you have. Let's add something to spice it up. And this is just one of the side effects of that. So it absolutely was interesting not making it all the way up that first overbank. You actually go higher up than I expected. The backward spike though, that was cool. Really epic, especially when you sit towards the back of the train. You're just gliding like straight backwards, right? You can't see when the spike is about to hit. And so you just all of a sudden slam to the right and you actually go pretty far up. It's not just straight up like on Pantheon or Tutatis. This twists and wraps around. It's a spiral and you're watching the spike like emerge out from underneath you. It's a really cool visual. So in general, I thought the spike was a fun addition. I was glad they added added it. It was nice to make it a longer ride experience, a cool twist on a classic roller coaster that you can now experience like all over the world. Still not one in the US though, interestingly enough. So you full steam ahead forwards, reaching your max speed, straight track, then up and over the overbank. Gives you a great view of the entire layout out in front of you. It's an interesting first element. Most roller coasters, like after their launch, send you into like a top hat or maybe an inversion. But all of Steel Taipan's inversions come later. You dive down from that overbank, height of 128 feet, now into a vertical loop. And I'm not gonna lie, I like grade out a little bit at the bottom of this overbank into the loop. It pulls some decent forces. Well, I'm not saying that this is like a very intense ride, because it's really not. But this one part, I was like, oh, hey, actually, I feel the G's there. I like this overbank that follows. You stay like low to the ground, twisting to the right, especially towards the front. You like quickly like transition into that. And immediately after, you rise up into your mid-course brake run. You get a little bit of airtime in the front hitting that, but when you're in the back, that's when you get the airtime over the drop off the mid-course. You can see some rock work that they put here in between this drop and then your second inversion. There's not like a ton of theming during this ride. I mean, there was that one other tunnel at the bottom of that overbank before the vertical loop. So it was nice that they had that there. I honestly wish there was a lot more of that, especially with how many low to the ground moments come afterwards. Like you have the second inversion right here, and then you're literally like banking right up against the ground here. This third inversion feels very similar to the second inversion. Same type of maneuver, you rise up, then quickly roll over. It's not like super whippy, but it is a fun moment. Immediately after is a twisted hill, actually a great moment of airtime. I really like how it pulls you up and over that element. Unfortunately, this bank turn that follows is really kind of lackluster. I found it to be like too long and drawn out. I mean, it's basically making a beyond 180-degree turn. You're literally going to pass directly under that airtime hill that you just went over. I just think it loses a bit of speed there, but it's okay because this final inversion is by far the best part of the ride. It's what we've nicknamed the blue fire roll. It stays low and just whips you so suddenly to the right. Very snappy, almost feels like out of place. It doesn't fit with the rest of the ride. The other inversions don't feel like that. I love the way it's profiled. It's very reminiscent to the Mosasaurus roll on Jurassic World Velocicoaster at Universal Orlando. Now, that element does it better than this, but this profiling came first. I mean, MACK did it in 2009. That's awesome. It's cool getting lateral forces on an inversion. But that's pretty much the end of the ride. You then bank right into the final brake run. So overall, I like Steel Taipan, but it's not amazing. Don't expect it to blow your mind. It works well at this park. I never got to visit Dreamworld before it, but it's kind of hard to imagine the park without it. Dreamworld's kind of in a weird in-between phase right now where they're transitioning the whole park into something very different from how it once was. And this is probably their biggest investment as a part of that change. So I hope it's been successful for them. I hope that they're getting the positive feedback they're looking for. So for the ride's final score, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. In the long run, this isn't a ride I'm going to be writing home about. It did crack the top 5 for best roller coasters we did in Australia, but that's also because there's not exactly a ton of options. I'll always be happy to hop on this ride or any Blue Fire clone. They're good for what they are, but MACK has definitely gone on and done much better roller coasters. And if you need a good example of that, just a few miles down the road is Warner Brothers Movie World. They got a coaster called DC Rivals. Go check it out. But all this being said, I'm still excited to come back and give this ride another go. And hopefully next time it'll be on a spinning seat where I can just sit on that thing all day. That is more like it. So let me know down in the comments if you've ridden Steel Taipan at Dreamworld. What do you think of it? If you agree with the points that I brought up, if you think there's anything I missed, be sure to let me know and stay tuned for more coaster reviews here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.